Flying penis.
Bid $28 million for a seat on the rocket. 5 other passengers were on board as well as part of the crew. Blue Origin says the new Shepard vehicle is a fully reusable suborbitable rocket, which was built for human flight from the beginning. At the Capitol, the Congresswoman has also been critical of social media censorship during the COVID pandemic. Mace joined State Attorney General Alan Wilson, Congressman Ralph Norman, and others in the race. And over to the U.S. Senate race in Georgia. Former University of Tennessee football coach Derek Dooley today announcing his bid in the race against Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff. Dooley is backed by Governor Brian Kemp, and
I like to see Ossoff get bumped out.
June. He joins a GOP field that includes Congressmen Buddy Carter and Mike Collins, as well as activist Reagan Box. Georgia Republicans are looking to topple Ossoff, considered the Senate's most vulnerable Democratic incumbent seeking re-election. Kemp and President Trump met and said they would try to agree on a preferred candidate. Anyone backed by both would be seen as the Republican frontrunner. And over to Washington, D.C., where senators have left after failing to reach a deal to speed up votes to confirm President Trump's nominees. Over the weekend, the Senate confirmed President Trump's pick, former Fox News host and prosecutor Jeanine Pirro, as U.S. Attorney for District of Columbia. Around 150 nominees are still on the calendar, waiting for confirmation.
But it looks like right now Jack Smith is the primary focus of this Office of Special Counsel investigation. And this investigation, in large part, looks like it is a response to a letter that Arkansas Senator Tom Cotton sent, essentially flagging some of these problematic actions by Jack Smith, asking the Office of Special Counsel to take a look into it. And so I think many, particularly Senator Cotton, have been greeting this news of an investigation as a very welcome development.
We have information that no other people get, no other members of the public have. This bill would finally redress that.
Senator Josh Hawley, alongside Democrat Senator Gary Peters, introduced a bill to ban members of Congress and their spouses from trading stock. It also applies to presidents and vice presidents, but some of the key elements don't take effect until the start of the next term. President Trump says he supports the concept, but added that an investigation should be launched into Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. She's been under scrutiny over allegations that her family has benefited financially from inside knowledge. Trump took to Truth Social to criticize Josh Hawley after he shot down an amendment to investigate her. Hawley was the only Republican to vote to advance the bill. Some opposers argued it could cause unintended consequences.
The way it would disincentivize the very type of people we need serving here, people who run businesses, people who balance a checkbook, balance a budget. Those people don't want to serve here because we're already making it so unattractive.
Several lawmakers have introduced stock trading bans, but years of discussion has not yielded concrete floor action. Senators spent much of this week confirming Trump's nominees.
We've seen an unprecedented level of obstruction and delay blocking from Democrats.
2 key nominees confirmed this week, a new CDC director and a controversial appellate court judge. Emile Beauvais is now on the bench at the Third Circuit. Democrats say whistleblower complaints against Beauvais need more investigation. Republicans pushed back.
A January 6th sympathizer on one of the highest courts in the country. They reward a man credibly accused of wanting to lie to judges.
I led an effort to review the disclosure document by document and analyze the facts. The documents don't say what my Democrat colleagues say they do.
Beauvais was confirmed on a vote of 50 to 49. A separate vote confirmed new CDC Director Susan Menarez. She says her goal is to refocus the agency on tackling infectious diseases. As for China, a bipartisan group of lawmakers introduced several bills to counter the Chinese Communist Party's human rights abuses, aggression against Taiwan, and transnational repression.
It's particularly important that we establish a clear government-wide definition of transnational repression, one that recognizes it as a threat to democratic institutions and to fundamental rights.
Right. It is projecting intimidation across borders, institutions, using political transnational repression as tools of coercion among people across the globe.
Now introduced, it's up to congressional leadership to advance the bills to the floor. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
The Hamas terrorist group recently released a video of a hostage as he was forced to dig his own grave. Meanwhile, U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff told hostage families that the U.S. and Israel are working to end the war in the Gaza Strip. NTD's Jason Perry has the story and a warning. This report includes content that some viewers may find disturbing.
The Hamas terrorist group released a disturbing video over the weekend. The video showed a very skinny Israeli hostage in a Hamas tunnel, and he was given a shovel and began to dig what was said would be his own grave. The hostage's brother, Elay David, spoke after the video was released, and doctors said his brother only has a few days to live.
We are shocked and horrified to see my younger brother as a human skeleton buried alive. We saw a new peak of cruelty of Hamas. We have to make sure the hostages are saved now, and also the people of Gaza.
Residents in Israel also went out to protest after Hamas released the disturbing video.
Yesterday we saw the videos of our hostages looking like skeletons, and we just couldn't stay home.
Also over the weekend, U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff met with family members of hostages still held in the Gaza Strip, and in a recording of the meeting said to be reviewed by Reuters, Witkoff is heard saying that the U.S. is working with Israel on a, quote, very good plan that would end the war in the Gaza Strip. The father of a deceased hostage explained how the meeting went.
The fact that he sat with the families for over 2 hours, listening to every personal story and hearing each individual request, and he answered the last question and didn't go until then.
And in another development, Israel released a video of 3 Hamas terrorists surrendering in the northern Gaza Strip. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said they had emerged from the tunnels in Beit Hanun in the northern Gaza Strip. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Over in the Indo-Pacific, the Chinese and Russian navies today are holding joint drills in the Sea of Japan. The body of water is located between the Korean Peninsula and Japan's west coast. The drills kicked off just 2 days after verbal tensions between President Trump and former Russian president escalated. NTD's Flora Hua brings us the report.
A Russian news agency reported that the drills would include firing artillery, anti-submarine and air defense practice missions, and joint search and rescue missions. A large Russian anti-submarine ship and 2 Chinese destroyers are taking part in the exercises. The drills are scheduled to run until Tuesday. While the Chinese and Russian militaries enhance their ties, tensions between Washington and Moscow are escalating. On Thursday, the former president of Russia warned that President Trump should remember that Moscow possessed Soviet-era nuclear capabilities. The next day, President Trump said that he had ordered 2 nuclear submarines to be positioned in, quote, the appropriate regions in response to the former Russia leader's provocation. Flora Hua, NTD News.
Those carbohydrates. And yes, you got to get in shape. Breaking news today, President Trump is signing an executive order to bring back the physical fitness test back to schools. He'll be joined by Kansas City kicker Harrison Butker, former New York Giants linebacker Lawrence Taylor, and Bryson DeChambeau, among others. So Dwight D. Eisenhower, which, by the way, he was one of the greatest presidents in American history and probably the best president of the 20th century. There's your thought crime of today. And one that I think we're going to be proving over the next couple of years. So stay tuned, because I like Ike, and you should too. We can learn a lot from him. He established the 1956 presidential fitness test to assess cardiovascular fitness, upper body and core strength, endurance, flexibility, and agility, according to Harvard Health. The test included a 1-mile run, pull-ups or push-ups, sit-ups, shuttle run, sit and reach. Children in the top 15% received the Presidential Fitness Award, established by LBJ. Obama replaced the test in 2013 with the Presidential Youth Fitness Program, putting more emphasis on students' health than their performance. We need to bring back the presidential fitness test, and we need to have a fitter country. Some people say, well, what about the overweight kids? Honestly, Maybe a wake-up call that they should stop eating Cheetos and Doritos all day long, and they should go for a walk instead of playing video games or staring at their screens. Maybe it's a wake-up call for these kids. Instead of taking Ozempic, maybe go for a 3-mile walk instead of staring at screens all day long. Now, of course, parents need to reinforce this, but we need to culturally promote the idea that fitness is good. And President Trump bringing this back. By the way, President Trump is in great shape for nearly 80 years old. I mean, he's phenomenal. Considering 80 years old, he does pretty well. But going more broadly to the entire society, regardless of who the president actually does this, being fit and thin is better than being fat and out of shape. You are happier, you have less depression, you have less anxiety. And you look at how the nation we used to be. We used to be a sculpted nation, and now we are a fat and slovenly nation. You'll live longer. The big picture is this. The test, this is from Axios, featuring challenges like the 1-mile run, pull-ups, and then the sit-up reach, was once a rite of passage for America's youth. It was also a source of anxiety and shame for more than a few kids who ended up feeling like they weren't strong enough for the president's or Arnold Schwarzenegger's purposes. Anxiety? Welcome to life. If you're a little fat and you can't do push-ups, then get yourself into shape. Shame? Okay, maybe your BMI is too high. Maybe that's the wake-up call that you need. Maybe you should be able to run a mile. Oh, well, you know, I was born overweight. Yeah, but you weren't born obese. Everyone has a certain genetic code, but being obese is a choice. Shame is good if it points you towards being better. Now, shame is not good if people are like using shame or peer pressure to get you to underage drink or to watch porn. That's bad shame. But good shame is peer pressure towards the good. And this is good peer pressure. If all of a sudden everyone around you is super cut and doing push-ups and pull-ups, body fat percentage is even better metric, by the way, than BMI. And that's why you should feel shame if you cheat on your spouse or steal. The same thing that happened at the Coldplay concert. Maybe instead of enabling kids to be fat and unhealthy, we should encourage ourselves to overcome life's many obstacles. Yes, life is tough. Sometimes you're going to have to publicly speak. Should we get rid of public speaking? Well, they have in many of our schools. Oh, I have anxiety about taking tests. Should we get rid of tests? Well, they have in many schools. The anxiety of a child means nothing. If you are not feeling anxious when you're at school, then you're not ready for life. You should feel anxiety on a nearly daily or weekly basis when you're at school. Good anxiety, not bad anxiety. Not the anxiety that you think you'll be treated unfairly, but the anxiety of, I don't know if I'll be able to pass this test. I remember back at Boy Scout, I used to go to Boy Scout camp every summer, and there was this very serious swimming test, and I failed it the first year. I was young. It was a 6th grade test. I was a 4th grader, and the next year, all year I trained in the pool to pass that test, and it was just like dominated my mind. It was, I gotta pass that test. I gotta pass the Boy Scout swimming test. And my parents were like, they would drive me to the pool. They would drive me. And all year I was obsessed about passing this Boy Scout swimming test. It was hard. It was in the middle of a lake. It was Camp Napawan up near Wisconsin, Wild Rose, Wisconsin. And finally, the next summer came. I didn't sleep the entire night, and I passed that test. And it was one of the most fulfilling things in my life. I failed it one summer, and I did it the next summer. And by the way, you know, almost every man out there, you should be able to do 30, 40, 50 push-ups. Prior to a couple years ago, I couldn't do any pull-ups. I could do about 7 or 8 legit pull-ups. Now my goal is to get to 10 or 15. Just be in shape. Push yourself. Being slovenly and overweight is a choice. Now, you might be a little more pudgy. You might put on a couple pounds. I'm not saying that if you're 10, 15 pounds overweight, I get that. But if you are so overweight that you need a wheelchair by age 30, I'm sorry, we shouldn't put up with that. We want a fit, we want a lean, we want a strong, a healthy, a determined country, not one that is sloppy, slovenly, overweight, and unhappy.
Threatened a 100% tariff on imports from countries that buy Russian oil. The Indian Embassy in Washington did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Russia, meanwhile, says a Ukrainian drone attack damaged a power line and sparked a fire at a railway station building. Authorities said an earlier drone attack caused 2 oil tanks to catch fire at one depot in Sochi. An Israeli Foreign Minister, Gideon Saar, is heading to New York for a special UN Security Council session. Before leaving, he said he initiated tomorrow's meeting to put a focus on the hostage issue. He was referring to a video recently released by Hamas showing a hostage still held in Gaza and a warning. This report includes content that some viewers may...
Yet they still have not seen
representatives of the Red Cross, despite this being explicitly agreed upon.
Talk all about Trump's economy, author of Trump's Economic Miracle and senior economic contributor and for FreedomWorks. Let's go to Stephen Moore. Stephen, great to see you. Thank you so much for the time.
Oh my gosh, what a day. I mean, I cannot believe these numbers that came out today, Charlie. Trump is just hitting it out of the park. And do you remember 5 months ago when all the leftists said, oh, Trump is going to cause a second Great Depression. He's going to destroy the economy. The stock market's going to crash. We got the news today of 3% economic growth for the second quarter. That's higher than any quarter, I believe, in the 4 years that Biden was president. This economy is cooking right now.
Yeah, so let's take a step back. So the GDP comes in stronger than expected. Again, the media is not covering any of this.
Right,
so let's go to cut 382. Better than expected. Let's go to cut 382, please.
3% of 3%. Better than expected. That would be the highest level since the third quarter of 24 when it was up 3.1%. On the consumption side, up 1.4, very close to estimates. Up 1.4 would be the best since the last quarter of 24.
And Steve, this is without the enactment of some of the additional Trump tax cuts like full depreciation. And so it conceivably could get even better. But Steve, one of the things that I think is important here is how wrong the expert class was on this. Remember back in spring, they said that we're barreling towards a recession. JP Morgan says odds of recession are increasing. The credential class. Your thoughts, Steve Moore?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, we have something in our hotline today, and if people want to get that, just go to unleashprosperity.com and sign up. It's free. But we had this great piece that Paul Krugman, who won a Nobel Prize, probably the leading economic voice on the left, who's saying Trump is going to crash the economy. He's going to destroy the American economy. And here we are. I doubt he's going to issue an apology for that. But by the way, I was wrong. When I saw the economy in April, remember the stock market was down by 2,500 points, and it just looked kind of glum. But Trump has pulled off all of these trade deals, one after another. And you know me, Charlie, I'm not a big tariff guy, but he's been able to get all these countries to give America a freer and fairer level playing field, which is huge for America's farmers, our manufacturers, our car producers, our dairy farmers, our tech companies. And I can't keep up with the guy, frankly.
So I want to actually zero in on that. You're not a tariff guy, but do you now think differently about how Trump has used tariffs to get to a free trade aim? How tariffs can actually be a tool? Can you dive into that? Spend some time, Steve, because you're not against tariffs in implementation, but are you now open to tariffs as a tool towards a freer market?
So that's a great question. And so I think we all know, if anyone who's an economist knows, trade is what economics is all about. If you and I trade voluntarily, by definition, we're broke. I give you something you want, you give me something I want. That's the essence of what economics is all about. And so, Milton Friedman always taught us that free trade is critical, one of the most important things for an economy. But what was happening is we were charging fairly low tariffs, and all these other countries, as Trump was saying, were ripping us off because they were charging these very high tariffs. And so what Trump was basically, remember, he said, we're going to charge 50% tariffs on these countries. That was prototypical Donald Trump. He always opens with a big number, and that scared excuse my language, the crap out of the Europeans, the Japanese, the Chinese. I mean, they have to have access to America's markets because we're the alpha male economy. We're the $20 trillion consumer market. And he used these threats of tariffs in a very strategic way to force these countries. I mean, do you remember, Charlie, 3 months ago when the Europeans said, oh, to hell with Trump, we're never going to make a deal with him? Remember that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
And then what happened 2 days
keep
ago?
Going.
They came to the negotiating table. Yeah. And so it's a perfect example of how Trump uses what he's doing, Charlie, he is flexing America's economic muscle and putting the country first. And that has a lot of these Europeans and the Chinese very indignant because, you know what? It's like we took the kick me sign off of us.
No, that's exactly right. And so, Steve, the free trade dogma, though, they were so critical of Trump. Do you see amongst the intellectuals, the intelligentsia, at least an admission that Trump was right and that his way of proceeding here was correct? Are we going to see any contrition?
Good question. It's a little early to say, but I have to say I've seen a couple of, I think it was the New York Times of all places, but don't quote me on that. It was one of the more left-leaning publications saying, hey, you know, Trump's policies on trade seem to be working. And I thought, wow, that's an admission. But how could you conclude otherwise? We have high growth. We've got a record high stock market. We've got 8 million surplus jobs. We've got fairly low inflation. It's a little higher than we'd like it to be, but fairly low. You've got consumer confidence at an all-time high. You got business confidence good. I mean, Charlie, point to me one thing that's going wrong.
Let's also put 422 up on screen. That is the debt. The debt will nearly double. That's right. The debt will nearly double in 30 years. And so growth is the path forward.
Yes.
And yet getting Congress to be able to agree to cuts is basically impossible. And I'm sure you can agree with that, Steve. They seem so reluctant or recalcitrant to engage with any spending cuts whatsoever. And so, Steve, let's just kind of broaden this one final time here in the time we have remaining.
Yeah.
That the next 18 months to 2 years to have proper growth is essential. And if we don't, we could have a European sovereign debt crisis.
So here's the thing.
Yep.
I'm going to send you a chart that's a variation of that shows what happens if you have 3% growth. And you know what? That chart that's so alarming, it starts to bend down and it goes down. By the way, if we got 3.5% growth in 30 years, we start paying down the debt. So that's why growth is important. One other quick thing, because I know time is tight. It was Ronald Reagan, and I'm very proud to have worked for Ronald Reagan. I believe he belongs on Mount Rushmore for what he did for our country. He used to say that the closest thing to immortality on this earth is a federal government program. And I believed that for 30 years. But guess what? Did you see what happened last week with Trump's rescission package? He got rid of 20 programs.
What else is in that rescission package that we should know of?
Oh, we got rid of the corrupt foreign aid. You know, we've spent $500 billion on foreign aid. I don't think it's helped any person except the globalists. We got rid of remember the electric vehicle mandate that Biden said everybody has to buy an electric car? We got rid of that. We got rid of PBS funding. And by the way, I occasionally watch PBS. I'll watch, but you know what? Why can't people want to watch it? Why can't they pay for it? I mean, Elmo is one of the richest guys on the planet. I think he's even richer than you are. Why do we have to be subsidizing? Exactly right. So we got rid of that. We got rid of all these programs you never even heard of, all these global this, global that, blah, blah, blah. Why are we sending all this money abroad when we can't pay our bills here at home?
Yeah, and by the way, NPR got a surge in private donations. Good. It shows that you guys could have been funding yourself without government money. That's the whole point. Go fund yourself through private donations like we have to do at Turning Point USA. At Turning Point USA, we raise over $100 million a year, 500,000 donors. We don't get any money from the U.S. Treasury. And you have to prove that you deserve to exist.
You get money because you provided value added to the American economy, and that's why people fund you, and that's fantastic. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot, Steve. And I agree. We do have a value add, whereas NPR is now going to have to justify its existence. Same with PBS. Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate it. Thank you.